More phone calls coming up, 877-3DP Show. Email address, dp@danpatrick.com. Twitter handle, DP Show. Beautiful day at Oakmont. Although I just saw Bryson DeChambeau hit a couple of shots in the rough from one rough to another and then couldn't get it out of the rough with the next one. If you put it in the fairway, it probably looks like not that difficult of a course. The problem is trying to keep it in the fairway. Yes, Paulie.
They were just showing an overhead shot, the flyby cameras at Oakmont. There was like 9 bunkers and this sliver of fairway in between them.
Yeah.
Wild.
But they've taken out like 150 bunkers over the years. I think they used to have like 300 there. Ernie Els knows all about that. He won 4 majors. He won the U.S. Open twice. He won at Oakmont, winner of 80 pro tournaments worldwide. Ernie, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. What do you see when you see Oakmont?
Hey, Dan, good to be with you, my friend. Yeah, no, listen, I put something on Instagram yesterday, just because weather plays such a big part in golf. They've had some wet weather up there in the Oakmont area, Pittsburgh. And I just kind of reminisced of our time in 94. We had a heat wave, 31 years ago, and the golf course was rock hard. But with all the moisture up there in Oakmont, it's nice and green. And as you just said, if you can get it in the short grass, you can put spin on the ball and you can get some control in your game. And I think that's what most of the leaders are doing this morning. They went out this morning with a bit of moisture and they're putting it in play. And from there, you can hit some shots. They've already had 2 holeouts. Have you seen those 2 holeouts? I just saw one. Shane Lowry just holed out on number 3. So,
do you like playing? Should the U.S. Open be the toughest golf course you're going to play that year?
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, all throughout my time, at the highest level, the U.S. Open was the toughest challenge by none. Every now and again you go to the Open Championship. I remember in '02 when we played at Muirfield, there was a Saturday, just this dark cloud came over and there was all havoc, ensued. Even Tiger had a tough day. He didn't have too many tough days in his prime, but he had a tough one. And but other than that, the U.S. Open is the toughest challenge. You have some of the greatest championship golf courses in this country, and they like to make them very, very hard, which is so what you're in for.
What were you, 24 when you won at Oakmont?
Can you believe it? Yeah, 24. It was a long time ago, baby.
But if you could go back and tell that 24-year-old something, what would you tell yourself?
Well, a lot. I mean, I remember, in my speech afterwards, I said, people will have to be patient with me. I've got a long way to go. So that was kind of wise words from a 24-year-old, because that's exactly what's ensued. It's been a long road. I did win another 3 majors, starting at 24 to only win another 3, it just shows you how tough it can be to win major championships. I won my first one at 24 and my last one when I was almost 43, when, Adam Scott had a tough finish, at Lytham. So, I've had some good stretches of golf. Thankfully, I've been in for the long run. To have a 20-year career at the top level, you're very fortunate to have that kind of career. So it's been a lot of fun, but there's been a lot of kind of struggles. My game. There's so many disciplines in the game that you have to master, and over time, some of them decay a little bit just because of what's going on in your head. And obviously I had some putting problems, and that's kind of that held me back a little bit, but for the most, it's been a good run.
When did you first hear the name Tiger Woods?
No, I mean a long time ago. I mean, I remember playing the Buick Classic at Westchester Country Club, and that was another favorite golf course of mine. And Tiger was playing the Pro-Am, and everybody was kind of talking about Tiger. I think this was back in '94 even, or '95. I mean, he's a couple of years younger than me. So we all kind of stood around as little kid, and everybody said, no, he's going to be the next thing. So I met Tiger back in those days, and he played in quite a few events as an amateur. So now I was paired with him. I think I was paired with him in '95 when John Daly won the Open Championship at St Andrews. I was paired with Peter Jacobsen, Tiger, and myself. I was also paired with him in the US Open at Shinnecock in '95. So we played a lot of golf together at a very early age for him. So I've known him for a long time.
Did you get it right away that, because some of the veterans told me, hey, he thinks he's going to come out here and dominate. And I remember one prominent golfer told me, it was like, hey, this is completely different when you come out here. And then he wins like whatever in Milwaukee. It's like, hello world. And, he didn't open the door. He knocked down the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other sport. You go from college football or basketball or baseball into the pros, and there's a different talent level there. There's a different atmosphere, so to speak. He didn't quite win his first one. He didn't win his second one, but I think by the third one, he figured it out. I think he won in Vegas or something ridiculous. I remember speaking to Tiger. I had a close finish at the Open Championship, but Tom Lehman won in at Lytham St Anne's, and I finished second. I was sitting in a locker room that there's just a wall between the 18th green and the clubhouse where the locker room is, the men's locker room. I sat there, I was having a couple of beers, just reflecting on, you know, how close it was. And Tiger slid in next to me and he started talking to me. And, I was like, what do you mean? He says, no, you think I'm ready? I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He says, no, I'm thinking about turning pro. And it was probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life.
You told him yes?
I should have told him, go back to Stanford, get a real job. You're not good enough.
Is Scotty, has he graduated to when we had Tiger versus the field, is it Scotty versus the field now in these majors, in your opinion?
I saw that you guys starting to talk about that. Even the players are starting to mention that a bit. Just when I'm reading comments of really high regarded players like Justin Thomas, saying, how can I catch this guy? That sounds like my language back in the day, with Tiger. How can I get close to this guy? So there's already a little bit of separation, and truly so, because the guy's phenomenal. I mean, he gets his patch where he's hot. He's very tough to beat. And to be honest with you, I've been watching the golf this morning. This golf course is made for him. You have to hit it both ways. You got to put it in the air. You got to have a good short game. Everything gets tested, but it's not the narrowest fairways I've ever seen at Oakmont. So it's very playable, but in over 4 rounds, it's very tough to beat this guy when he's at his best. So yes, there is talk like Tiger disc kind of golf.
What does pressure feel like to you?
Well, it depends on where you at in your game. When you sharp, when all your disciplines, you got them intact. It's it's a measure of where you at in your game and how you can prove things to yourself. Because the highest pressure is when you really get tested, and if you want to get tested against the field, pressure is the best barometer to test yourself. So it feels like you going through a test where your game's at when you inform. When you're not informed, it's one of the worst experiences because you don't trust yourself. If there's a discipline that you're not quite mastering at the moment, if it's driving, iron play, short game, putting especially, under pressure, putting, things fall apart if you're not really on top of things. So it can be good and it can be really, really bad.
But you can't hide. That's the thing about golf is when I play on the weekend, I can reload. You got to go play your foul balls. Payne Stewart once told me, hey, the difference between us and a regular player is our misses. we know we're going to hit great shots. It's our miss might be 3 yards off, yours might be 30 yards off. But have you had that feeling on the golf course where you go, I could just leave now and walk off the course and be done with this. Go have a beer and, I forget, the hell with the last round.
Absolutely. And the longer you play, the more those kind of situations can happen, especially me at 55 now. If I have to put myself in that situation and I'm not on top of my game, that golf course will eat you alive, if you're not on your game. The greens there are some of the most treacherous greens you'll ever putt on. You're going to see 4 putts there, believe me, over this week. You're going to see duffed shots out of the rough. And you're right. And Payne Stewart is right. In major championship golf, it's not about the great shots. It is, yes. But it's those shots that you miss and you don't have a chance of hitting a shot near the flag. Where do you play it to where you have a chance to get the ball up and down or save a stroke or save 2 strokes? And that, at the end of the day, can be winning or losing at the end.
If I made you drink a beer each hole in the major, who would have the most majors?
Without a doubt, John Daly.
Have you ever had a 19th hole sit down with John where you have a couple of beers?
Now, I've known John before the US public knew about John. John came down to South Africa in the late 80s, early 90s. And he was a superstar down there before he became a superstar here in the US. He won some tournaments down there. We were very young in those days. And, if I was going to go to university, I had to do military service, but I had a couple of US college offers, and I would have gone to Arkansas. Can you imagine that?
You and John?
Yeah, we would have definitely met there, but he's a good friend. He still plays championship tour golf. No, undoubtedly the guy, he's slowed down a lot now. But in his heyday, not even I could come near him. I could have a couple.
It's good that John's slowing down, Ernie.
Yeah, well, we all slow down.
Yes, we do. And when I brought up pressure, I was wondering about, we can't fathom what Rory was going through that Sunday at Augusta, because it was like, it wasn't joy. There was relief, real relief there. What is that feeling like of you just want the round, like you're just holding on for dear life, and just exhale?
That is so true what you say. When I watched it, I was in agony for him. I could see the pressure. Even when he was making putts, like on number 10, and so there was not a big relief of smile on his face, because he knew there were really tough, difficult holes coming up. 11, 12. I mean, there's a disaster on every single hole at Augusta. Very much like in major golf. So. But the one that really shocked me, because he got really lucky on 11, because it was one roll away from making double. The ball was going in the water on his second shot. But then on 13, when he laid up, I think even he surprised himself, because he's such an attacking player, that he laid up and he thought, okay, I never really play safe, but I'm going to play safe here. And then he dunks his third shot in the creek, right at the hole, where there's a slope that brings the ball back down to the hole. So that's when I realized, wow, he's really trying hard, yeah. And then he comes back with the tough shots. On 15 he hit it, he makes eagle there. 16 he hits an unbelievable shot. 17 that iron shot. And then on 18 he screws it up again. So it was agony to watch, to be honest, but happy for him.
What's the coolest thing in your office?
Well, I'm sitting here in our design office. My guy, Greg Lecce, he just left the office, so I'm sitting on his computer.
Oh, okay.
Coolest things, I've got some memorabilia. I've got a photo here of Pebble Beach. I never won there, but there's a new beautiful photo. But I got some US Open stuff here, and I got some signature stuff from Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and so on. And I've got some other sports memorabilia. So It's almost like your place there. I see you got a lot of
I got a
stuff.
lot. Yeah, I got a lot. Do you ask Tiger for an autograph?
I've got an autograph from him, absolutely, but I know him too well now. As he gets older, I'm going to get more autographs from him. You never know.
Yes. Yeah. You don't want to get it when you're competing against him.
No, we were rivals, so to speak, but he got me 85% of the time, unfortunately.
Great to talk to you. Thanks for sharing, Ernie.
You're the best. Thank you.
That's Ernie Els, World Golf Hall of Famer, won 4 majors, won the Open twice, and won at that golf course that they're playing right now at Oakmont.